Have you ever had one of those moments where everybody says to you, you just need to relax, and you want to scream a little bit inside? Because it is not just that you are busy, it is that your brain feels full. You are thinking about what needs doing and what might go wrong if you don't stay on top of it all. And the exhausting part, a lot of the work is invisible. Nobody really sees it, nobody really counts it, and yet it can leave women feeling mentally overloaded, emotionally drained, and like they never truly switch off. So if you are a lady in midlife who feels constantly on, mentally full, easily overwhelmed, and like your mind never gets any peace, this video is for you. Because today I want to talk about the invisible mental load that is exhausting so many ladies in midlife. What it actually is, why it feels so heavy, why it can affect your nervous system and your emotional well-being deeply, and what you can do or begin differently. Because once you understand the mental load properly, you stop minimizing it and you can start realizing you are not just bad at coping, you may simply be carrying far more than people realize. So what the mental load actually is. Let's start by naming it properly, because the mental load is not just having a lot to do. It is the invisible cognitive and emotional labour, keeping life running. It is the constant internal management system in your head. It is not just doing the task. It is remembering the task, anticipating the task, mentally holding the task. So often women, and not just physically doing a lot, they are mentally carrying a lot. And that carrying is relentless, because even when you sit down, your mind often doesn't. You are still scanning, still tracking, remembering, anticipating, problem solving, emotionally monitoring the environment around you. And that is exhausting in a way that is so hard to explain, because it is not always visible enough to be validated, but it is absolutely real. Why so many women feel mentally full all of the time. A lot of women in midlife say things like, my brain never switches off, I can't think straight, I feel so scattered and I'm forgetting everything. Even small things feel too much, and often they start worrying, what is wrong with me? But often what is happening is not something is wrong with you, it is your mind is carrying too many open tabs. That is the best way I can describe it. Like having 37 tabs open in your brain all at the same time. Some of them practical, some of them emotional, some relational, future-based, and completely unfinished. And your system is trying to hold all of them at once. That creates a very specific kind of mental fatigue, because the brain is not just tired doing, it's tired from holding and anticipating too. And that is why women can feel exhausted before the day has even properly started, because they wake up already mentally on, already running that list, already tracking what needs to happen, and carrying the emotional weather of the day before they even have a cup of tea. And if you live like that long enough, it becomes very hard to calm, because calm requires space, and many women in midlife feel like they almost have none of that. This is such a big part of the mental load, because many women are not just managing practical life, they are also managing their moods, needs, appointments, emotions, preferences, well-being, comfort, relationships, disappointments. And this is where the mental load becomes deeply emotional, because you are not just remembering to buy toothpaste, you're remembering who is struggling, who needs checking on, who is upset, stressed, likely to forget something, and who needs emotional support and holding together. And if you are a natural, caring, empathetic, responsible lady, you are often carrying this without realizing how much of your internal energy it takes. You can become the emotional organizer, emotional buffers, emotional safety net, and over time, this can become absolutely exhausting. You are not just thinking about things. You are often carrying the emotional atmosphere of your relationships and environments too. And that kind of invisible labour can leave women drained in a very deep way, not just tired, but emotionally saturated. Midlife can intensify the mental load in a really powerful way because for many women, this is the stage of life where they are holding multiple generations and multiple roles at once. You may be supporting children or adult children, worrying about aging parents, navigating changes in your relationship, carrying work or business responsibilities, managing health concerns, juggling financial pressure, dealing with hormone shifts, processing grief, identity changes, and trying to keep everything afloat while you're feeling exhausted yourself. So it's not surprising that many women hit midlife and feel like, I cannot hold this all in my head anymore, and that can feel frightening if you have always been the one who copes. But often midlife is not making you feel incapable, it's simply exposing how much you have been carrying for years, perhaps also exposing that the old way of coping, the pushing through, the holding it together, the being endlessly available is no longer sustainable for the woman you are now. And honestly, that matters because midlife is often the season where women start realizing, I cannot keep being the emotional project manager for everyone's life, including my own. This is where it becomes really important to understand that the mental load is not just in your head. It affects your body too, where your mind is constantly scanning, tracking, remembering, planning and anticipating and staying alert to what needs your attention. Your nervous system often stays in a low level state of activation. In other words, you are really fully off, and that means your body may struggle to access real rest. So you can end up feeling tired but wired, physically exhausted and mentally alert, overstimulated by noise or demands, emotionally reactive, short-tempered, anxious, unable to switch off. And again, ladies often judge themselves for this. They think, why am I so irritable? Why can't I cope with the small things? Why does everything feel too much? But often it is because your system has no spare capacity, because your mind is never fully allowed to come down. And when you live like that for long enough, even normal life can start to feel overwhelming. Not because you are weak, but because you are carrying too much cognitive and emotional load without enough relief. That is a nervous system issue as much as a practical one. And I think that is such an important thing for a woman to understand. Why mental load is often minimised. One of the hardest things about the mental load is that because it is invisible, it often gets dismissed, sometimes by other people, but very often by you. Because if you are not physically doing something in that moment, it can be easy to think, well, I shouldn't be this tired. And I haven't done much today. And why do I feel so overwhelmed? But mental labour is still labour. Emotional labour is still labour. Just because nobody can see it does not mean it is costing you energy. And I think women have often been socialised to normalise this, to treat constant mental carrying as just part of being a woman, just part of being a mum, a partner, a daughter, a professional, a helper, a carer, a strong one. But normal does not mean healthy. And common does not mean sustainable. So if you have been minimising how much your mental load is affecting you, I really want to gently say, please stop dismissing your own exhaustion just because it is invisible. It counts, it matters, it has a real impact on your well-being. Many women don't realise how little space they actually have. This is such a powerful awareness point. A lot of women in midlife are not necessarily lacking strength. They are lacking space, mental space, emotional, sensory, relational, and breathing space. And when you have very little internal space, everything starts to feel louder, heavier, more irritating, more emotionally demanding. And that is why things like clutter, noise, interruptions, constant questions, repeated demands, decision-making, emotional tension can start to feel so overwhelming. Not because those things are too much in isolation, but because they are landing on a system that is already full. Because many women are not overreacting, they are overloaded. You cannot keep pouring into everyone and everything around you if you have no internal space left for yourself. So what actually helps, because I think this is important too, supporting the mental load is not just about better organisation. Sometimes organisation helps, yes. The deeper issue is that too much is living inside your head and nervous system, then support has to go beyond productivity. Firstly, I would encourage you to start naming what you can carry, honestly. So write it down, not just the visible tasks, but the invisible ones too. the remembering, the emotional checking in, the planning, the monitoring, the anticipating, and the mental holding of everyone and everything, because often women do not realise the sheer amount of carrying until they actually see it laid out. Secondly, ask yourself, what in my life is sitting in my head that does not need to be there? That is such a powerful question and can be written down, delegated, shared, dropped, simplified, spoken out loud, instead of silently held, because one of the reasons the mental load becomes so exhausting is that women often carry it silently, and silently carrying it is heavy carrying. Thirdly, create small moments where your brain is not in constant input mode. That might mean a walk without your phone, 10 minutes with no noise, putting things on paper instead of holding them mentally, reducing decisions where you can, and taking pauses before your system is at breaking point. And lastly, please allow yourself to recognise that just because you can carry something does not mean you are meant to carry it at all. This is such a powerful midlife lesson. Capability does not mean infinite capacity. So if you are watching this and thinking, this is me, my brain never stops, I am so tired of carrying everything in my head, I really want to say this gently. You are not failing because you feel overwhelmed. You may simply be exhausted from being the one who notices, remembers, organises, absorbs, supports, anticipates, and holds so much for so long. That is not a small thing. And perhaps part of your healing in this season is not becoming better at carrying it at all, but becoming more honest about the cost of carrying it. Because I think many women in midlife are reaching the point where they are quietly saying, I cannot keep living with this level of mental and emotional load. And honestly, that is not a weakness. That is wisdom. That is your system asking for relief, for support, spaciousness, and for more sustainable way of living. And that deserves to be listened to. So if you have been feeling mentally full, emotionally stretched, and exhausted by the invisible load you carry every day, please know this: just because other people cannot see it does not mean it is not heavy. Just because you have become good at carrying it does not mean it is not costing you. And just because you are high functioning does not mean you are not deeply in need of support too. Because so many women in midlife are not just tired, they are carrying an invisible weight that has been normalised for far too long. And perhaps this season of your life is not asking you to carry more gracefully. Perhaps it's asking you to carry less, and that is a very important difference. If this video resonated with you, I would really love to know in the comments what part of the mental load feels heaviest for you right now, because I promise you, you are not alone in this. Take gentle care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.